Very welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching us from around the world. This is the Inspired Family Leader Program with Samuel A. Bakutana, your host, a certified executive coach, an award-winning leadership consultant, global speaker and author, CEO, Inspired Leaders International, which is an international leadership development firm that empowers leaders to transform nations, and your provincial Fathers Union President. What a joy to have you tuned in this wonderful moment. There is a specific group of people who have earned themselves a certain title. You know, in different places, people are addressed differently. You go to a certain place, you hear people say, "My Lord." You hear people say, "His Majesty." You hear people say, your worship. You hear people say, "Lady of Honor." Now, there is a certain group of people who are usually called the honorables. They say, "Honorable so and so, honorable so and so, honorable so and so." In fact, among the books I have written, specifically last year, came out a book titled Honorable Leadership: The 7 Reliable Strategies for Becoming a Highly Influential Leader Beyond Your Generation. Honorable leadership. But have we ever thought about the importance of being a person of honor, especially as a man, as a family leader? Today, we are talking about becoming a man of honor. Every man can be called honorable so and so if you become a man of honor, and that's what we are focusing on this wonderful moment. And with me in studio to have this important conversation is a man of honor, a fellow husband, a fellow father, a brother in the Lord, a professional, great man, a namesake by the name of Barnabas Samuel Aliku, who is the CEO of Petra Families Foundation. And Petra coincidentally happens to be the name of my teenage daughter. So you are very welcome, my brother.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much.
To have me.
Yeah. How have you been?
I've been well. The year has started so well.
Yes.
A week ago, I was in Kagadi.
Okay.
Preaching to young teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they were in their hundreds, and so it was a good thing to just start off the year with having salvation, harvest for salvation. So it was a good thing.
Wow!
Yeah. So that's how I've started.
That's really beautiful.
Yes.
I did the same end of the year, last week of the year.
Yes.
Last week of December.
Yes. So it has been a great time. Last year it also ended so well. Of course, it always fills my tank. I had a boys' camp, so it...
Boys' camp?
Yes, boys to men boot camp.
We need as many of those as possible nowadays.
We always take the boys away for 1 week, so we had that happen. I think, mid-December. So, and then towards the December festive season, and then what we did last week. So it's been a busy season for me, but I love it.
It's been a busy season.
Yeah. Yes.
You love it?
Yes, I love it.
Interesting. So you are busy and loving it?
Yes. I love it.
You are busy and loving it. Interesting. So go right ahead, please. Look in the camera right there and introduce yourself to our viewers a little bit more.
Yes, our dear viewers, my name is Barnabas Samuel Aliku. Passionate about the boy, child, and men, and also I run an NGO called Petra Families Foundation, where we reach out to the boy, child, and men. And through that foundation, Christine and I, my wife, who have been married to for the last over 20 years now.
Well done.
Yes, and God has blessed us with 4 disciples. Aliyah, Josiah, Ella, and Caleb. And
who is Atuwaile among them?
Sorry?
Who is Atuwaile among them?
Atuwaile is Ella. That's the second last born.
Yeah, I'm interested in that one because when I say Samuel A. Bakutana, my name, the A is Amuthaire, so it has a big relationship.
Okay, that's our second last born.
Okay.
Ella. So yes, so that's us, and then of course we run this NGO, and by God's grace, we have written 7 curriculums.
Interesting.
Yes, one called Boys to Men, where we take the boys away for 1 week. And then there's one called Mothers Raising Sons. We reach out to the boy child through the mother. And the mantra there we have is that you are raising somebody's husband and somebody's father, raise him well. And then we have written another one, which we launched towards the end of last year at Sky's Hotel. It's called 5-Star Dad.
5-Star Dad.
Yes, that's also a 10 weeks program.
Wow.
And the mantra there is that you're your daughter's first love and your son's first hero. So that is also, we're rebuilding foundation through fatherhood. So it's also a 10 weeks program. All these programs have a retreat and then a mid-retreat and then also a retreat at the end where there's a sleepover. Though the boys, we take them away for 1 week. And then of course there's another one called Man of Honor. Yeah. Which is the conversation we're having right now. It's purely for men 18 years and above.
Yes.
And it's a very rigorous experience. We take men away for, the men go through the program for 10 weeks. Every Saturday they have 2 hours of just having a conversation. And then it's a plenary session. Then they break out in small groups and discuss. In the mid-season of that, we do a paintball shooting. We take them and shoot each other. They didn't kill each other though. And then at the end of that, we have a sleepover retreat. And then we have Shepherding a Teenager's Heart. It's also a book we have written. It's a program for parents with teenagers.
Yes.
So they also meet and just have a conversation on how to manage, raise their children better. Then of course we have Pursuit of Purity. It's purely for teenagers. 13 up to the young adults, and we take them through this program, and all they have to do is be at a place of understanding that they have to keep themselves pure. We give them a purity ring that is throughout the experience, just a symbol to know that I have to keep myself pure.
Something visual to keep reminding them of their commitment.
And then also we give them a wait to date card, which they can put
Wait to date.
Wait to date. In other words, don't go into a relationship, don't awaken love, as the scriptures tells us, until the right time. So there is a small card they sign and say, Daddy and Mommy, I'm going to wait. And also there is a note behind for the parents, how to walk the journey with them, so that it's not just don't, but how to navigate that space.
Okay.
And then also we have for the younger, the adults who are at university, they've started dating. There's a visa to date card as well. So we're like
giving them permission.
And bring that person home.
So they can go and find someone to love.
Yes, I love it. Hey, you've covered every area here. So they are given an opportunity to go out and say, look, don't hide. Please bring the person home. Let's have dinner.
You have a visa to start.
Yes, you have a visa to start. Please bring the person home. Then, of course, I'm a transformation life coach, certified transformation life coach, and also lead a community in Chira under Mavuno Church. I'm a man under authority. So Pastor Michael Obo Onen is my pastor, but I lead a small community in that area. So that is it really. I'm also a principal of a school. We have homeschooled our children.
Interesting.
Yes, so through the curriculum called SCE.
I know it. My children have gone through that.
Yes, so it birthed a school. And so we have a school in Chira, a small town called Chira. So basically that's me.
What's the name of the school?
It's called Chokma International Christian Schools. Chokma is a Hebrew word for wisdom.
Yeah.
So that's the small school we have there. So that's me really.
Good to know, and I want to really thank you, my brother Samuel Barnabas Aliku, for the work that you have been doing in transforming lives, in impacting families, in equipping the hitherto neglected boys, empowering the men to become the husbands and fathers they were created to be, but also giving tools to the mothers to raise responsible sons so that they can become great husbands and awesome fathers.
Yes.
Very commendable. I really want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking seriously the mountain of family, but also the mountain of education.
Yes.
Because those two are very critical and foundational.
Absolutely.
Everybody who goes to any other sphere of influence, whether it is media or politics and governance or business and economy or celebration, where we have culture, arts, sports, music and entertainment, they come from family.
Absolutely.
And they go through education for 2 decades of their life at a fundamental level before they can be put out there as human resources for the country.
Yeah, and it's very key that family is the formation. So the formation of who you're going to be usually is very key, because the foundation, the best rock is really family. And I had actually forgot one experience we have also written. It's called the Strand of Three.
Yeah.
It's for couples that have thrown in a towel. Couples who are, they haven't yet signed the divorce papers. We're like,
but they are no longer together.
They're no longer together, and we have succeeded with one couple. So, and this couple is going to be our champion to reach out to others who have reached a place of, we have divorced. I mean, we're at a place of signing papers.
Yes. And
we're like, please, God is the third strand in this relationship.
You kindly talk with them, let them know that I am interested in hosting them here.
I will definitely. I will. You know, so it's very important to just understand that God, because you invited us for your wedding, we were so many witnesses, and what there was a spark somewhere.
Yes.
So what's the loss of the spark? So the experience is 12 weeks, and we have 3 retreats, and in those 3 retreats, we don't mind you staying in another room while the other person is in another room.
Oh yeah.
But we converge and talk and say, look, this thing, we need it to work.
This thing can work.
And we have so far succeeded with one.
Amazing. So, amazing. Yeah. These amazing stories.
Yeah.
And you know, we often hear a lot of negative stories about parenting, about children. You hear people say, children of these days, teenagers of these days. And I say, but these days don't produce. We are the ones that produce. So when you say children of these days, no, it's children of Samuel, children of Dan, children of etc.
Yes.
They belong somewhere. Yes. You also hear a lot of negativity around the aspect of marriage. No, so when we hear these kinds of positive experiences, it is very inspiring. Talking about becoming the man of honor, what is honor really about in your view?
Wow. You know, we can't talk about a man without going to the blueprint, which is the man that God first created. For you to become a man of honor, we need to look back, because the blueprint is Adam was the first man that was created. And there was a call on Adam's life. And the call for Adam was to tender the garden, reproduce, and also to, of course, name the animals. But he was, and to dominate. God gave him a space to just dominate. For him, the call on his life was to just honor this man who was given him the power and authority. And this is what he was supposed to do. And the Bible tells us God always came and they had a conversation. I think it was a place
every evening,
yes,
if I remember
every
well.
Evening, yes. There was a place of, by the way, I did X, Y, Z. In other words, if I gave you, I think Jesus talks very many parables in the scriptures. If I gave you something to do, then you honor me by doing it well. And in this regard, a man, we have been given, there's a mantle for a man. If you talk about the mountains of, mountain of family and others, a man, to become a man of honor, it's just understanding. It's just like the manufacturer of, say, this microphone had the intention of it. So the purpose of this microphone, and for it to work so well, for it to be here, I'll say it did its purpose. It was here, it didn't fall down, it didn't do anything, so I'm happy with it. And in that regard, for a lack of a better word, it has honored me to do its work. Because I am in charge, I'm in control. So a man of honor, it calls you to a place of, God has instilled so many ingredients in us, so many things in us. How can we give back? When you're giving back, for me, in my perspective, it's a place of honor. Because there's if I bought a car.
Sorry to cut you short. So because the question is, what is honor about? So are you saying honor is about giving back, something like that? Or
Honor
What is honor about?
Honor is more it's more or less giving back. Honor is respect. Honor is there's something that radiates off from what you are. As a man of honor, there's something that God has created you to be. There's something that God has created you to be. So it's understanding the call of true masculinity as a man. In my perspective, it's a place of being honorable.
Yes.
Because God has given you gifts, there's some things that He has given you, but unfortunately, because we even look at the perversion of the world out there, many of us have misused as men the things that God has given us. Because if we go to a place of understanding, like say Adam, because we see the fall of man, Genesis 1 and 2 is we see the really honor of man. And then the fall of man, we see the dishonoring of man. And there are some things that we ought to do and understand as men. Because if we understand the things, then we shall know why we should be honorable in very many ways, or to honor people around us, or to honor the gifts that God has given unto us. So when you respond as a man to the call, for me, in my perspective, then you're a man of honor. Okay. Because in that regard, you must be at least the priest in your home, and that calls for acknowledging that God called you for a relationship. Because I want to believe every time God came to have a conversation with Adam, it was a place of, my friend, how are you doing this? How has it been? How are you interacting with the woman I've given you, and all that? So a priest is a person, you must have a relationship with God. And then of course you must be there's a bit of a vision. You must be a visionary man. In other words, when God gave Adam stuff, the man named the things. He called lions names, he called elephants names, he called the vegetation names, because he was visionary. He was a prophet. A prophet sees ahead of time. Yes. They name things. They say, if for instance, if you are married and you're renting at that time, you can tell your wife, you know what, in 10 years' time, we shall be out of rent. So you look ahead of time. Adam failed to protect as well. Men, we are by nature, we're protectors. Yes. And it comes to a place of when you pass a woman being abused in a community and you just mind your business and you're not protecting all young children, you're dishonorable in very many ways. So a man of honor, it carries that as well. We are protectors. Of course, also our presence matters. And then of course we are providers. There's some men who have dishonored the call of true masculinity. They don't want to provide. So it calls for those entities in a man to be at a place of being honorable. Okay. So yes.
So honor is really about respecting yourself and respecting others and being able to give back in exercise of true masculinity that displays and exhibits itself through priesthood, through being a prophet who is visionary, through being a protector, through being present and able to provide.
Absolutely. Because if you look at it, for instance, if you throw it back to Eve, was she honorable with the things she took around herself? Because when you look at now, if you're defining an object, let's say this book, then we could look at maybe the paper, where it came from, what kind of paper, what kind of tree was it, or whatever it is. When you look at a man comes from God, God's image. So we go back to a place of God created man in His image. And when we look back at the first man, then I think there we can have a base to have this conversation of who's a man of honor. Because there's some men out there who you call honorable men, but then there's a disconnect from the creator. It's like the manufacturer has manufactured, let's say, a laptop, and then we don't have the manual, and you disregard the manual. Definitely it will be at a place of you can't operate it.
Many people, that's what they do. You buy a fridge or a TV or whichever machine, air fryer, oven, mention it, then you don't read the user's manual or the manufacturer's guide. And then after you have blown up the fridge, then you go to check in the manual, but now you cannot save the thing.
Absolutely. I've
anymore.
found myself in that space so many
Yes.
times. As a man, I always find the male ego comes up. I start fixing, and then I end up with 3 screws in my hands, and my wife is busy reading the manual.
You have 3 screws
Yes.
in your hand,
Yes.
but you feel you have finished
I've
fixing.
finished
So you're wondering why you have
Why
extra
do I-
screws.
Yes. Yeah, so it takes you back to the place. So as men, we need to go back to our manufacturer. What
Okay.
did God create us for? Why am I here? And if you get to understand that, then you'll be able to honor God with every gifting, because
Okay.
every man is gifted in a specific and special way. Let it be. Now for the woman, femininity should be go back to a place and understand, if I look at myself, am I giving back? Am I, so for me, in my opinion, it takes you back to the place of understanding.
Okay.
You as a creation, and also the manufacturer. There
Alright.
should be a relationship, a connection. In that regard, then you get to know that, by the way, this is what I'm meant to be doing on earth. And because these are my giftings, I have to give them back in a way, either to community, society, and back to the Creator. So
Let me
in that
throw
regard,
the spanner in the works
Yes.
and open some Pandora box here.
Yes, please.
Can somebody who has no vibrant, meaningful relationship with the Creator, with God, live an honorable life? Can't you become a man of honor without having to be religious, spiritual, connected to God, and all this that we are talking about? Don't we have men of honor who don't even know the color of the church?
I think I would say yes and no. In that regard, you'll find men they'll say he was a good man. He had all the things. He cared for the community.
Very respectable man.
Very respectable. He built a hospital. He did all these extra things. But I want to say that there's something. It could be like a good phone, very beautiful. It has the SIM card, but it's not connected to any network. So it's very beautiful and everything is working, looking so good. But it's not what is, without being connected to the network, you can't call. You can't use that. It's a good phone. You can use it for everything, but you can't make a call.
Yeah.
Because you're not connected to Airtel or MTN or Leica Mobile. And I want to believe that that's God. When you're connected to God in that regard, then all the things can happen nicely, because I want to believe that one day we shall stand before God and give accountable to all the things. So doing all these good things, you could be honorable in the eyes of man, but in the eyes of the manufacturer, it could be something totally different.
Okay.
Because we can do all the things, the nice things, but the truth is, on that day when you're before God and you give it accountability, it will not be good to say that, yes, look, I fed so many. Yes, that's a very good thing.
Yeah,
and
because
even the Bible tells us that
faith
if
without
you feed,
works is dead.
Yes, whenever you feed the poor, the Bible says, I think it's in Matthew 25, that you're giving back to God.
Whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do
that
unto
is
me.
so wonderful. But if there is no connection with the vertical connection with God as your personal savior, it could be just like a waste, in my opinion, because that connection, for me, the personal relationship with Christ, for every man out there, for me, is the key thing.
Okay.
It's the key thing.
All right. I see our time, it looks like somebody is running after it.
You're right.
So for the sake of time, could you help us understand some hallmarks of a man of honor? How do I tell that this is a man of honor? Can I take a look at him and tell this is a man of honor? What are the hallmarks of a man of honor? In maybe 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. I think the first key thing, it comes from a place of being, are you under authority?
Being under authority.
Being under authority calls for, can you report to somebody? Are you a servant? Are you doing life with a band of brothers? Are you accountable? So there's so many things there for us to understand, for a man to say that this man is connected all the hallmarks of a man. But I would say, for instance, I would still go back to Adam. When you look at the creation story, Genesis 3:6, it tells us Adam was standing next to Eve when the serpent approached his wife, and the man, and he allowed the serpent to speak to his wife.
Yeah.
So there's key things there he didn't do. I think for every man, they need to know out there that as a man, we need to take initiative.
Taking initiative.
Taking initiative. Adam should have taken initiative and said, look, you're talking to my wife, and please, this is my home.
Back off. Yes.
And I want to
believe as the head of the home.
Speak to me. And I think if that happened, then there would be something different.
We would still be in Eden enjoying fruits.
Exactly. So a real man takes initiative, and also we should take responsibility. And responsibility is, of course, the pointing finger. It always says, please take responsibility. And as men, we ought to take responsibility. Adam should have taken responsibility and taken on the enemy, and say, look, this is my territory. But he didn't. By the way, the Bible says he was next to Eve, because when she picked, she gave. The Bible says she gave to her husband who was with her. So he should have done better. And then, of course, he should have, as men, we ought to lead sacrificially. He should have taken the bullet, not let Eve take the bullet. So we, as men, we ought to live sacrificially.
But you see, we want to live long, so we are careful with these things of sacrificial living.
I know.
Because we feel they may cut short our life on earth.
Yeah, but in that regard, we do so many things.
Yeah.
There are men, when a man goes to the market and he comes back, or a man could wear a shoe which is a quarter past, and you're saying, what's wrong with this man? For years, but he knows he has to bring bread on table. That's sacrificial leadership. The collar is torn, but he still has to do something to bring bread on table. And that, for me, is sacrificial leadership. That we take responsibility irrespective of the challenges that come with. And
where is the dividing line between sacrificial living and self-neglect? Where is the dividing line? And some men claiming they are doing sacrificial leadership, servant leadership, but when in actual sense many of them are simply neglecting themselves when they shouldn't.
And also neglecting responsibility, because it calls for spiritual maturity here. It calls for understanding that being in a rat race is bigger than, because there are men who say, I left money on table and I've gone to work, and they forget the relationship with their children. At the end of the day, they realize when it is so late, you could say it was a sacrifice for time to make school fees, and you guys knew I provided, but then there was no relationship.
There wasn't.
So you could say it's a sacrificial leadership, but at the end of the day, you've missed out on a relationship. And when you want to connect when you're retiring, the boys, the girls don't know you. They know more of mommy, but daddy you are not there for us. So you would say you're sacrificing, but so that's why I always tell men, we need to go back to the drawing table and look, are you really sacrificing time for the family, or you are
sacrificing the family,
or you're sacrificing the family, or it's a selfish interest. So it's very important that we try to balance. As men, we ought to balance, because if we don't balance, yes, you'd call it sacrificial leadership, but then you're missing out on the bigger picture of your family.
So the hallmarks of a man of honor is that he is a person under authority, he belongs to a band of brothers, he takes initiative, he takes responsibility, and he leads sacrificially.
Absolutely. And also loves faithfully. And loving faithfully means you love your family, you love the one woman God has given you, and you must be faithful. And then also you must leave a worthwhile legacy. A legacy calls for what we live every day, because there is a good legacy and a bad legacy. There is people who remember you for the bad things, and the people who remember you for the good things. So we ought to have to be at the place of having a worthwhile legacy, a legacy that we shall leave behind and say, yes, he lived a good legacy. Being
remembered for something significant with an eternal implication.
Absolutely. But the key thing of all the things that we're talking about as a man, there must be a connection. You must be connected to a network, and that network is God. And when you're connected to God, there will be discernment of some of the things. You'll not be a dishonorable man in very many ways, because there will be a direction, there will be discernment, there will be understanding that as a man, there's something. A man who prays, you wake up in the morning and you're like, God, I'm stepping out, but I know there's something. I just open doors for me. And then you're at a place of, when you come back home, by the way, people have died out there, I am here. So there is a connection. So for me, that connection is the key thing there.
Yeah.
In all these things that we do as men.
Okay. Wonderful. So when you look at these things, being under authority, belonging to a band of brothers, taking initiative, taking responsibility, excuse me, leading sacrificially, loving faithfully, leaving a worthwhile legacy. What usually stops some men from having these hallmarks?
Wow.
Because we don't see many of these in a number of our brothers around us.
Yeah.
So what usually stands in the way? What stops them?
I think, Samuel, to be honest with you, the bottom line, which is the root cause of all this, for me, is fatherhood. Many of us, fatherhood and mentorship, many of us have never been told some of the things. We have grown up in homes where people, many men have grown up in homes where there's polygamy, there's witchcraft, there's all those, a cluster background of all sorts of things. And then you're grown, you come to the city, and no one is held your hand to mentor you. And then you also make money, and here comes a girl who wants to be married, and you jump in. And so that mentorship, for me, is the key thing, the foundation. Some of our fathers never told us of what we should do as men. We just grew. And so
we were not raised.
We're not raised.
We just grew up.
We just grew. We're not mentored. So it's one of those things that happen.
Like a wild plant
in a man's life. And then also it doesn't help us with the male ego. The male ego, which is pride. We find like we know. Knowledge is not... I recently there's a young lady who came and said, I want to go through this. I want my son, my husband to go through this program. And she said, please let me just have the book, because he's a lawyer, he reads a lot. So when she took the book to him and said, there is a group of men, they go through this book. He said, okay, put it there, I'll let you. In the morning, he came and told her, I read the whole book. I now know what they discuss. He's like, no, go and do life with other men. He does life alone. And he's like, I know what I'm doing. So the place of pride and male ego takes us away from a place of knowledge, understanding, and being at a place. And also, then it makes matters worse if you don't know Christ. It's the reason a man will take an envelope where he knows that money is meant to be for maybe children with cancer.
Yes, HIV patients. And because there's no that conscious of knowing that I have to do this, a man will just, because there's no conscious of, or maybe a Christ-like conscious, there's a disconnect in that way. Then lack of accountability. Some men don't want to. They want a freelance life. Yes.
Because you'll be asking them, I saw you with so-and-so. I saw you the other day here. And also, there's this money that is not accounted for. Where is it coming from? Yeah. So some men will prefer to be not accountable to anyone.
Nobody should be asking them questions.
Nobody should be asking anyone. And then also lack of exposure. Exposure to knowledge, to travel, to see things out there which are different cultures, how they do things. So when you're not exposed, if you know it's only your mom who cooks good food, you will know that she's the best.
Yeah.
Until you visit and have a taste of another woman's food, and you're like, wow, I think there's something different. So some of the things really take the men away from having this knowledge and creating the hallmarks in men's journey of true masculinity. So in my opinion, if these things can be cracked, especially fatherhood.
Fatherhood crisis.
I had to understand. I had to grow myself in knowledge. The statistics on fatherhood in Uganda are so bad. Even in the recent research at Makerere, in the recent population census, it left a lot of a gap. Even there was a research with the Ministry of Labor and Social Development. There was also a gap of fatherhood. It maintained the 5% of fathers who are intentional, and then also 30% of households in Uganda are led by women. So you realize, and some of these women.
Could it be that the men died? Because again, they say men die earlier.
Yes, there are very many things. Mental health is one of them, and so many other things. But yes, so
and others are intentional single motherhood.
Yes,
very many factors at play.
There are very many factors, and very many fathers are absent.
Yes,
others are they're passive, and so the boys grow.
Others have been denied custody,
and there's no mentorship. Then here they are in a family, and they're struggling to lead that family.
Yeah.
I was one of those until I had to get a mentor, and I made a resolve, because when growing up, my father had 3 wives, and I could have said, let me upgrade. For some
reason, we share a lot somewhere, yes. Even a name. Yes. Many things that you are talking about sounds like my story.
But I made a
things don't happen coincidentally.
Absolutely. Oh, and I made a resolve. I said, no, I'll have one wife.
Yes.
And I've been so intentional to the extent that when my children are born, I cut their coats. I'm the first to carry them in this world. I have homeschooled my children.
Yes.
And then I date them. So I am at a place of, these are things that my dad never taught me. He wasn't there for me.
Some lady right now who is a single lady watching is saying, does that guy have a younger brother who is not yet married?
May God bring you one who's like that.
Yeah.
In Jesus' name. Yeah, so it's very important that as men, for us to get this, not to stop us, to get these cracks, I think we need to be at that place of understanding.
Yes.
That, you know what, if I don't, be intentional. A man out there who could be watching us and you're saying, look, for me, I'm also struggling. I'm in this space, and daddy never told me, mommy never told me. You just have to make a resolve and be intentional. And
so, in other words, if a man wants to up his game in this area of being a man of honor, that's where he has to start from, being intentional.
Yes, and be accountable. Be accountable. It's not easy to just meet a group of men and start talking about the things. But as we do even the program of Men of Honor, we have men, they come as strangers.
Yes.
And when they come as strangers, they look at each other. It's very interesting when we launch. We're launching on 1st of February at Nobview Hotel in Ntinda. But men come and size themselves. They look at the car they're driving. Is he wearing a label? Is he? Then lesson 3 talks about us actually, the things we're running after. And you just realize that they are vanity. And a man realizes, you know what?
Yeah.
I think I need to be a better person. So
the adult toys.
Yes. We're running after toys, and the reality is that we're going to leave the things here actually. And what you valued so much, people will not value it when you're gone. And so it's very important to realize that we need this more, that our treasure should be actually in heaven and not here on earth. So when a man gets to that place, it becomes a different person, just realizing that, by the way, whatever I have, even in the bank and wherever, I'm leaving it here. And yet there is a treasure in heaven that I owe to. And that's why now the honor comes in. That we honor the giftings and everything that God has given us back to the kingdom. And so for me, that is the key thing, that if a man gets to that place of reality, that, by the way, these things we are running after, the rat race we are in, it's coming. It's not a meaning. It's not a means end in itself.
Yeah.
There's a bigger picture beyond me.
Someone said that when you are in the rat race,
yes,
even when you win, you are still a rat. Because it's a rat race.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the man should start from being intentional, being accountable, and knowing that there is a creator who put him here for a purpose, and therefore exercise that God-given potential to serve.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There is nothing like walking in purpose. If you get to know, otherwise you'll be here to eat, live, and die. But when you get to know the DNA, I mean the actual thing that God created you for, there's nothing as beautiful as that.
Indeed.
Yeah, I didn't tell you, but I'm a culture tourism consultant. But what has taken me places, even me sitting right here, is purpose.
Yeah.
Because if I get a gig of maybe doing a consultants in culture tourism, it's a plus. and whatever I get there, I'll put it back into my purpose, which is the God-given purpose. Something God has just called me, taken me places, platforms. A small boy from Budaka going to the US to speak into a men's conference. It's why? Because it's purpose. I discovered that thing, that the reason I'm living. So if a man gets to connect to that thing, it's a different ballgame.
Indeed.
Yes, in a man's life.
Miles Monroe, the Dr. Miles Monroe, says, where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, abuse is inevitable.
And
so
he went on to
finding
say
purpose,
that the greatest strategy in life is not the day you die,
but living a life without a purpose.
Absolutely. It's very key.
I hear you.
Yes.
And you've just said that I don't know that you are a cultural tourism consultant. You will be shocked that I know. I even know that it was part of your Masters of Arts in Management Research at the University of Greenwich when you researched about cultural tourism in the Burma Sahara, right?
Yes, I did.
Now you know that I know.
Wow.
So as we bring this almost to a close, we just have about 7 or so minutes. All this that we've talked about, it brings up the serious fact that we really need to equip men to become leaders of honor. There are different spheres of influence. Whether a man is in tourism, like you've just said, I recently met about 85 of those in the tourism world in Karangara, under the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Uganda Wildlife Authority, Uganda Wildlife Education Center, Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute, Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute, and so on and so forth. And we were having these kinds of conversation. We went through Honorable Leadership, the book. If we are to equip leaders, men to become leaders of honor, what would you say are maybe the top 2 or 3 things that we have to do? That wherever we meet men, we should do these 2 or 3 things to equip them to become leaders of honor. What would those things be?
I think for me it would be serving. Because if you're at a place of serving others, then it becomes a different thing altogether. Because a man who's not serving will still hold his hands and say to Saba government at Tuyambe.
Instead of Saba government to Giambe.
To Giambe, yes. So because someone once say that if you're not making money, then you're not solving any problem. Because
that is serious.
Because if the taxi man who was maybe, let's imagine I use a taxi to come here. If that my problem to come here was not solved by the taxi man, then I wouldn't be here. But he saw my problem and solved it. So men out there, I think for me it's a place of pushing men into service. If men, I've seen many, let's say for instance, I'll speak about the common places where I go. Churches, you find that it's women who are into this place of ushering in people in, cleaning the chairs and all the things. But men at a place of, I want to come in, I sit and I hear the word and go
away.
But so if you brought a man into a place of service, there is something that kills the male ego, that brings a man to a place of, by the way, it's about others. There's a poem I read about others, and it was talking about when you were born, you were bathed by others. You were born with the help of others. Your first birth was done by others. The day you live on earth, you leave everything you have for others. And it's others that will take you to your last place of where you're going to live,
the grave.
Earth. So it talks about others and others. So it's a place
your
of
birth and death. It is a journey of interacting with others.
Yes. Writing these books is because of others.
It is.
Because otherwise, if it was for you, then you write to yourself. But it's because of others. So it's a place of knowing that in life you can't do life alone, but there's a place of others. So if every man gets to connect to that, then honor is very easy, because even just having an audience, it's other people listening to you.
Definitely.
Like right now, it's other people listening to us. So it's a very important thing to become.
So in other words, you're saying if we are to equip men to be leaders of honor, let's not even say the top 2 or 3 or 4. Let's simply summarize everything and say, teach the man to serve.
To serve.
Nathan Eldon made a statement and said, service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living on earth.
Wow.
Service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living on earth.
Because in the serving, you'll find God.
Yeah.
Because you're at a place of, by the way, these are people, God's people, and there's something that it changes about.
So do you serve because you do you find God because you're serving, or you serve because you found God?
No, it is everybody has their journey, but I want to believe that along the way you realize that, for instance, if you are trusting God for a service, that maybe it's a service in return, it takes you to a place of prayer. And because if you're serving somebody and they're not respecting what you're doing, and it brings you to a place of, even I'm not being honored for the thing I'm doing, and takes you back to the place of prayer. So I want to believe that serving is one thing, and if a man finds God is another thing. If we can tell men that, please be the priest in your home, be the prophet in your home, provide for your family, protect your family, and all the things, I think it takes a man back to a place of, you know what? By the way, the Bible calls us small gods. You need to understand that you're
that's a controversial phrase in many circles.
Yes, it is. But also being
like little Christs.
Yes, but being accountable is another thing, that every man should be accountable. Because there are men there who will still say, I don't want to be, you know, if you're not accountable, then you're a bomb waiting to happen, because there's so many things that happen out there quickly.
Okay. All right. So as your parting shots, could you share with us what are some of the things you're doing to your sons, Suvi and Mukisa, to enable them to grow up into responsible adults, to be like the man that you are, in just 1 minute?
Wow. Josiah and Joshua Caleb, Mukisa, I have been very intentional with them. I do the boys' camps, so it starts from age 7. So Caleb has so far attended 2.
Yes.
And it's amazing that I'm mentoring them through that. And like
so
I say,
attending camps for boys.
Attending camps. I'm a very intentional father. I date them, I talk to them. We have had sex talks from age 5.
We need to know what you told them about at age 5.
Age 5, yes. It's as simple as talking about just biology itself is a sex talk, how to use the toilet and all the things. So they are great men in making, and I'm so proud of them.
Wow.
And yes, for a man out there, if you're in this direction of saying, how can I be a man of honor? It's a place of learning from others. Stand on the shoulders of the giants that have gone ahead of you, and you'll be a better man. You'll look better. Great. You'll see great things. And you can do in this 1 year and live it like 5 years. That what other men have done in, say, 5 years, you can do it in 1 year. And this just being a place of being effective, intentional, and being at a place of realizing that, yes, as a man, I can make a difference. And of course, with Christ at the center of this, there's nothing that can stop you. So
awesome.
You're the majority. Even if you're one and Christ on your side, you're the majority.
Awesome. What a pleasure it has been listening to your nuggets of wisdom as you shared on this important topic of becoming a man of honor.
Thank you so much. It's the grace of God.
Ladies and gentlemen who have been watching today, the ball is now in our courts. The referee is done. The linesman has gone. The ball boy is not anywhere. You are the one remaining in the pitch right now with the ball. Will you kick it? Will you leave it? Becoming a man of honor. We have realized that when we talk about being a man of honor, we are talking about you being the priest of your home, being the provider for your family, being the prophet, visionary person, to mention but a few. We have also understood that we can tell that this is a man of honor if we realize that he is under authority, if we find that he belongs to a band of brothers, if we find that he takes initiative and takes responsibility, blaming nobody for his circumstances, if we realize he leads sacrificially, loves faithfully, and leaves a worthwhile legacy, that one is a man of honor. And we've been warned sufficiently on this program today that there are things that can hinder you from becoming that man of honor. If you experienced a fatherhood crisis, if you lacked mentorship, if your ego is bigger than how it should be, and you lack accountability, and you've not been exposed to access knowledge, to access travel, cultures, etc., there will be a big challenge. And the good news is that we have where to start. Becoming intentional, being accountable, serving others, finding God. Good start. So if you and I are going to join hands and equip our fellow men around us to be leaders of honor in their different spheres of influence, we need to equip them to serve. We need to equip them to find God. We need to help them to live a life of accountability. What is my nugget of the day from this program? My nugget of the day is stand on the shoulders of giants. That's my nugget of the day. Stand on the shoulders of giants. They are men, strong men of valor, great men of integrity, of great substance, honorable men who have gone before us, who are giants in these things. We need to find them, locate them, get into their life, and stand on their shoulders. If we are to see farther than we are able to see, then we will need to be lifted higher by standing on the shoulders of those that are taller, in quotes. What is the quote of the program today? The quote of the day from our brother says, if you are not making money, you are not solving any problem. That's the quote of the day. If you're not making any money, you're not solving any problem. Let's go and be men of honor.
Skills of a general.
Yes.
To lead an army of one woman.
So we have to take a lot of pain, a lot of effort to teach children how to